Welcome back, Thrive Nation of Thrive and Beyond. I'm your host, Fidel Cisneros Jr., and I'm excited because today's guest is nothing short of amazing. Kimanzi Constable is a good friend of mine, and when he's not vagabonding internationally, going all over the world for these consulting gigs that are well in the six figures for Fortune 500 global companies, he's actually getting together with me and having a cup of coffee, and we're just sharing stories. And he's become such a good friend, colleague, and mentor that it's taken a minute for us to get together to do this interview. So I'm excited about having him share his tips and, most importantly, his amazing story of humble beginnings as a bread truck delivery driver to becoming this person that has been featured at TEDx speaking events, and also has been featured in all of the largest publications. He's a contributor for Success, contributor for Entrepreneur, Huffington Post, just to name a few. But Kimanzi Constable has also sold well over 100,000 copies of his books in multiple languages and in multiple countries. So his story is nothing short of incredible. So without further ado, here's my good friend and esteemed colleague / mentor, Kimanzi Constable.
You just sit down and you express your thoughts, whatever's on your mind, maybe what happened the day before, maybe what you're thinking now. I think it's very important to just be, if you can't be honest with another person, to be honest with yourself in that journal. And you just do a brain dump and get it all out of your head. And sometimes we need to do that. Otherwise, those thoughts like fester in our mind and they could turn into something else.
Welcome to Thriving Beyond, the podcast with stories of thriving through when the obstacles are far from few. Here's your host, whose own story has been featured in Chicken Soup for the Soul, Fidel Cisneros Jr.
All right, welcome to Thriving Beyond. I'm excited. So my man Kimanzi Constable is coming with us today on Thriving Beyond, and you are a consultant. You're doing big things in London currently. That's where you're at right now. And you are scheduled to be where next? As of this podcast recording, where are you scheduled to be next?
Paris for a couple weeks, then Barcelona for a couple weeks, and then Rome for a couple weeks.
Nice. So before we get into this guest segment, man, what is the craziest thing you've seen in and out of airports? Because I know you've gone through, almost every airport imaginable, right?
Yeah.
To say the least.
A lot of airports.
So what's some of the craziest stuff that you've seen, man, in airports?
I've seen people that act crazy. So like people that get into fights at the ticket counters and have to deal with airport police. I've seen people going through like the checkpoints and the security checks and then going nuts because they can't have like a certain item. I've seen like in international airports, like weird food, like especially when I've gone to like Tokyo and that airport and some other airports, I've seen some very different kind of food where I'm like, wow, that looks really interesting. I've seen just human nature, I guess, in airports because you're dealing with so many people. You see all kinds of different personalities and people that I guess just live life a certain way. You kind of see a little bit of all of it.
Man, I can imagine. Wow. That's crazy. I'm sure you see all the time too as well. People probably just jumping in and out of like trying to hurry up and shower and just missing flights. And I remember I just saw somebody that travels a lot. I don't know as much as you do internationally, but they travel across the U.S. quite a bit. And they've come to a point where they had TSA recognize who they were. I think it was at LaGuardia or somewhere, some big airport. And they were like, yeah, I know that chick. Let her through. She's going to be late for a flight. And she bypassed the whole TSA checkpoint thing. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. If you do travel a lot, I have TSA pre-check and global entry because, I travel to about 16 countries a year, every year. So it's a lot of international stuff. So you need the TSA pre to skip a lot of lines in US, and then you need the global entry when you come back into the US. And then on top of that, I always fly with the same airline alliance, which is SkyTeam, which is Delta, Air France, KLM, and a bunch of other airlines. And so I have platinum status with Delta, which means that I get to go to like the lounges, the airport lounges. And those are like a godsend when you're traveling because if you go from one place to another, you might be sweaty, you might feel a little bit grimy. You can go into those lounges and take a shower and get a hot meal and just veg out.
Nice. Vegging out in the airport comfortably.
In the lounge, yeah, because
That's
in the lounges they have areas where you could actually sleep. They have completely lie flat couches and beds where you can actually sleep. They have areas where the food is. They have areas where you can do work that have charging stations and all that. Some of these airport lounges are very nice.
very cool, man. Definitely, that's going to pay big dividends. So thank you for those tips, man. So let's
Yeah.
get into this guest segment. Now, normally we just jump into like morning routines, et cetera, but we're pretty good friends, on and off. So as far as this podcast, what is, I guess, some of the advice you would say that has been like one of the biggest morning rituals that helped you gain success? And I can assume it's going to be something tied into writing, correct?
Yeah, well, no, yes and no. You have to know when you're the most productive with whatever it is that you do. So like if it is writing, for me, yeah, I'm more productive in the morning with writing, but I would say it's more so journaling than writing. And I don't think enough people journal. I really don't. Journaling where you just sit down and you express your thoughts, whatever's on your mind, maybe what happened the day before, maybe what you're thinking now. I think it's very important to just be, if you can't be honest with another person, to be honest with yourself in that journal. And you just do a brain dump and get it all out of your head. And sometimes we need to do that. Otherwise, those thoughts like fester in our mind and they could turn into something else. So I think it's important to journal in the morning. I think it's important to meditate or pray or whatever you want to call it. Just have some completely quiet time where you shut out the world and you shut out the craziness and you collect your thoughts. And you talk, if you're a Christian, you talk to God. If you not, you just want to meditate, you close your eyes, you shut out the world. I think that's very important. And then if at all possible, I also think exercise in the morning is important too, because it gets your blood flowing, it pumps you up, it gives you the energy that you're going to need for the day. So I think those things are very important. Now there's, like a lot of other little things like whether or not you check your phone when you first wake up. Like everybody says something different about that, right? Like don't check your phone, or I check my phone when I first wake up, or whatever. I think you have to figure out what's.
Yes. And just to interject, I'm guilty of that. I have to be very intentional not to go on social media when I first wake up, bro. It sounds like you're the same too, right?
Yeah, well, it's a personal choice, I think. You have to know what works for you and what's going to distract you and what's going to ruin your day. Because it's a toss up. You could go on there and see something great on your phone or social media or email or whatever, or you could see something that just upsets you. So I think you have to know yourself.
Right. That is so true. Man, you brought up some great points. I know hanging out with you, brother, I have never seen anybody capture and post content as fast as you do and multitask. So that's why I love being around you when we get to hang out when you're back in Milwaukee in the Midwest. So we're both Milwaukee. Well, I was born in Chicago and we're both Milwaukee raised, correct? At least I know I am.
Yep.
You are too, right? Okay.
I was born in Milwaukee.
Right now, born and raised.
I was born in Milwaukee, East Side, St. Mary's Hospital. Grew up on Kramer Street. That's as Milwaukee as you can get.
Oh, no doubt, man. East Side, St. Mary's. Both my daughters were born there at St. Mary's Hospital. Yes, man. Definitely got that love for Milwaukee. So that's one thing that I noticed with you, brother, is how fast you are with capturing the content and creating new content. And then I see you just from us hanging out, how you create it from our conversations and from day to day, whatever convos you're having with people, man. Is that kind of how it goes down with some of your content writing?
Yeah, I think inspiration finds you in a lot of different ways. And I think if it's an issue that you and I are talking about, I know other people are going to struggle with it. So I want to capture that magic in that moment. And I think a lot of people are not transparent enough and not authentic enough to really to put that content out there that captures that moment. And that's not how I want to be. Like you know me, so you know that my goal I run a lifestyle business, which is a business that means writing, speaking, coaching, consulting, travel. It's a business that you form around your life, but it involves some element of freedom, some element of working from your laptop, not being tied to a location. And so my goal with this, and a lot of people want to live this kind of lifestyle. I mean, a lot of people want to travel around the world, and a lot of people want to speak, and they want to consult, and they want to write for big places, and they want to write books. And the reason why I want to be authentic is I want to show them the full picture. I want to be the one person that shows them the full picture, not just the good. I want them to see the bad too. I want them to see the real moments, the moments of struggle. And I want them to know that this is what you're going to go through and you're not alone.
Man, that's where the writing begins. With the stuff you don't want to share. And you are so great at doing that, brother. So whether you're doing it in your columns on Entrepreneur. So Kimanzi, on a side note, brother, you have been in Print Magazine this year, in the Entrepreneur magazine. Actually, I picked up that copy, and we were hanging out, I think, right that same week. I think the week afterwards when it was just came out on Entrepreneur on newsstands, which was so awesome, brother. Talk to us how that went down. I know you mentioned in conversations together that you went to the actual offices in New York, right?
Yeah, I've been writing for a lot of online publications, Entrepreneur, Success, Huffington Post, AskMen, a lot of different kind of major publications since like about 2014. And I've always done the online versions, but this year they came to me and said, "Hey, we know you have a story, and we're running an issue, beginning of the year issue, about what it takes to get out of a funk, and we know that that's something that you've gone through, and we want to know if you want to write an article for it." And I'm like, heck yes. So I wrote an article, and they put it in the February 2017 issue of Entrepreneur Magazine on newsstands. And so I knew that it was coming out I turned in the article like 4 months before it ever came out. And so I knew it was going to come out. I knew it was going to come out. But it's different when it actually comes out and hits newsstands and you see it. And then what's crazy for me is because I'm in so many airports, I'm walking through all these airports and I look at the newsstands and I see there it is, Entrepreneur Magazine, like the one that I'm in. And so I would go and I'd pick it up and I look at the article and like people would walk by and like, "Hey, that's you. Like you're in this magazine. Like, can I get a photo with you? And can I shake your hand?" And I had that experience so many different times in airports where people would either pick it up or they see me looking at it and they're like, "You wrote that? You're in the magazine?" And it's a surreal feeling to just walk by and see it and know that I'm in there in print on this magazine all over the world.
Wow, celebrity status moment, man. I love that,
Not
bro.
Not quite, but it was a good moment.
Definitely one to remember, and when we're highlighting on this episode, no doubt. So, man, you've traveled all over the place. You're a big vagabond. You've written for large publications, etc. in print. Okay, you will be, now there's a little I guess sneak peek for some of you guys out there that don't know, but Kimanzi will be in Fast Company, in the print version of Fast Company, which is awesome. So brother, you have done this large publication contributor status thing for how many years now? We're talking what?
3 years about.
3 years, and now you're hitting the print version of those publications, which is ridiculous to think that could happen. But man, you're living the dream. And for a lot of us, go ahead.
It's crazy to think that somebody like me, Vidal, has told you my story, but it's crazy to think that like a high school dropout, somebody who dropped out of high school, didn't go to college, didn't take the grammar classes, could be writing for all these places.
Right, man. You are, dude, a beacon for all of us blue collar guys that either we had past careers or we're transitioning into this chasing our dream kind of atmosphere. And brother, you are a beacon for all blue collar people out there that think it's not possible and they can't become authors, speakers, consultants, etc., etc. The dream is real. So
it's real,
man. So if you could share with us, I guess I know these past 2 years have been a roller coaster, whether it's, whether we're talking about like personal and I guess in some aspect business, correct?
Yes. It's been a roller coaster for sure. So I think the roller coaster started at the end of 2015. 2015 was like my pinnacle year, I guess, in my business. I started the business in 2011. And I built it slowly, slowly. 2015 was the height of the business. I got interviewed on Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn, which is a pretty big podcast. I was writing for the publications. And I honestly, Vidal, had a business, an online business that was doing $30,000 a month, like consistently. And I'd never seen any income like that in my life. And it all just felt kind of surreal. And then come to the end of that year, I got the opportunity to start traveling for some consulting gigs. And when I started traveling and a lot of situations happened, my marriage of 17 years ended up falling apart. And so my marriage fell apart. It was over. Then come 2017, I thought I'd get back out there on the road and just kind of focus on work while I was processing everything. And then I ended up meeting a woman at one of the consulting gigs that I did in Medellin, Colombia. And I definitely was not in a place to be in any kind of relationship at that point. But being the kind of person that I am, I'm like, oh, this beautiful woman wants to spend time with me and yada, yada, yada. So I ended up entering into a relationship with this woman. And we started out slow and just talking and getting to know each other. And then over a few months, it started to get a little bit more serious. And then she said, hey, why don't you move down here to Medellin with me? And that's what I pretty much did. I made Medellin, Colombia, my home base. And I was in a relationship with this woman for almost a year. And it was terrible. It was terrible. The relationship was very unhealthy. There were a lot of red flags and warning signs that I just didn't want to see because I was quote unquote in love. I got some advice from Vidal several times, like, hey, you really need to think about what's going on with this relationship and how it's affecting every part of your life. But I didn't want to hear it. And, I just hit rock bottom in 2016. It was a bad year. I lost a lot of business that year. I lost focus. I lost motivation. I didn't even want to do anything. And it took most of that year. I left Medellin, Colombia in about December of 2016 and ended that relationship. And it was just over finally for good. And once it was over, that's when I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulder and I could just see all the mistakes that I had made. So I came to Florida at the end of 2016, and then I went back to Maui, which has been my home base for the last several years. And I just took some time in Maui, 3 weeks in Maui, to reconnect with the dream and to reconnect with who I was and to get my head right. And since then, since leaving Maui, that's just kind of where everything has fallen into place. I'm working on my health and losing weight and exercising and all that good stuff. I still maintain a great relationship with my 3 children. I did end up getting officially divorced, but I still have a great relationship with my 3 children. And on the business side of things, it's just exploded incredibly. I have all these opportunities now this year. I'll be going to 16 countries this year for consulting gigs. I have great clients that I'm working with now. I have paid writing opportunities that I'm doing, and just every part of the business has exploded. But this, really is my year of self-mastery, where I told myself I'm going to become the best version of myself this year and focus on my kids, focus on the business, and focus on getting better with myself.
Man, thank you so much for sharing that, brother. You're definitely my mentor, in writing and in creating this online business. Brother, you've been instrumental in my growth and the little bit of success that I've had with writing and being a contributor. So thank you so much for that. Just to preface for listeners that don't know, Kimanzi's helped me out tremendously. I mean, we've grown to become really good friends. So it's a great mutual relationship that we've built. But brother, the work, it doesn't stop once you get to that next level. And I know you're way further ahead than myself. And I'm just starting to enter that cusp. And I'm like, holy smokes, every second counts when you're at that next level, right?
Yep. Every second counts.
So brother, what right now would you say has been like the most instrumental part of you getting, I guess, some of these larger opportunities? Has it been like a relationship, relationships that you've built over time and nurtured? Or was it just your massive action taking just to pitch everybody day in and day out?
When I started this journey, I did a lot of pitching. I pitched speaking gigs, I pitched consulting gigs, I pitched publications, and I did a lot of pitching. I think in 2012, I guest posted on over 60 blogs. I was a guest on over 80 podcasts. I sent out 180 pitches that year for speaking and consulting gigs. So it was a lot of pitching. These days, because I spent the last 3 years writing for these big publications and getting exposure and getting in the media, now I've had the opportunity to start to consume my content in these places that they know and they trust. And they've reached out to me and said, hey, we like your content. We've seen what you've put out there. We'd like to have a conversation about what it would take to get you to come to our company and expand upon it in a training. So in the beginning, yeah, it was a lot of pitching. Now it's after putting in the work the last several years and really getting exposure in the media, which you and I have talked about a lot, Vidal, but getting exposure in the media, now the opportunities have started to come to me.
Very nice, man. You are, dude, just a powerhouse, brother. Just going after it. Incredible. So is there any advice, I guess, that has resonated with you lately where you're like, wow, this is like my theme that I'm running with this year, perhaps, whether it was from anyone, and don't worry, it's okay. It doesn't have to be any advice from me. You've already covered some of that. But as far as, I guess, like something that just really hit you and you took with you this year, and then you're like, man, this is what I'm going to run with this year.
There's been a couple things. One is this idea of focus, because I think when I started out and when a lot of people start out, it's easy to see the shiny objects around you. So like somebody will say, I did this and it led to this income amount, or I did this and it led to this result in my health, or I did this and it led to this result. And all of us want that result, whether it's more money, more health, a better relationship, whatever. Somebody's always talking about they use a certain strategy. And when we see that, we want to run to it and we want to try it. And then we'll spend months on it. And then it doesn't quite work out the same way, because the reality is just because something worked for somebody else does not mean it's going to work for you. And more than anything, it takes focus to build whatever your dream is. So a lot of my career and a lot of what I've done, I've been distracted by shiny objects. This year, it's been a year of complete focus. So, I'll give you an example. This year, I know that consulting is a huge part of what I'm going to do. This year, I know what working with high-end clients is a huge part of what I'm going to do. Writing is always going to be a huge part of what I do. And that's what I'm focused on. But then just the other day, somebody sent me a message on LinkedIn talking about how they get $10,000 a month worth of business from LinkedIn using a certain strategy. Do I want to get on a call and hear about it? Now, if you hear somebody talking about making $10,000 a month, what is your immediate thought? Oh yeah, I want to get on that call and I want to hear about it, right?
Oh, no doubt. But
yeah,
the shiny object.
it's a shiny object, and it's not where I'm at, and it's definitely not in line with where I'm going this year. So for me this year, it's been about saying no to that, saying no to joining all these Facebook groups, saying no to quote unquote network with certain people, saying no to everything that does not fit on my path with where I'm going. It's complete focus. And that has it's created clarity. It's helped me stay on track, and it's helped me push forward to where I need to go. So that's the one lesson I would tell you is you got to be focused. You can't get caught up in the bright, shiny objects. And just because something worked for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. You have to know what your path is, and you have to stay focused on that path. And then the second thing is this idea of knowing your value or knowing your worth. Because for a long time, I had like really low prices, and I was afraid to raise the prices for what I did because I was thinking that nobody's going to sign up. I have to keep the prices low to keep the business coming in. But more than anything, it wasn't an issue of price. It was a self-limiting belief within myself that I had to overcome. I had to realize that I am worth more. I do provide that value, and I should be charging more for my most precious resource, which is my time. I have to charge more for that, because you don't get time back. It's your most valuable resource. So I had to understand that I am worth it, that I do provide the value, and that I can charge the prices that I need to charge. And I literally like 6x'd all my prices, Vidal. I raised the prices on everything to where they should be based off of the value that I'm going to provide. And now what it's meant is I'm getting less clients, but I'm making more money with each client. So I'm making more for doing less work, which is how it should be. And then by adding the prices to where they should be, I've also attracted a more serious and a different level of client. And it's worked out for my business in tremendous ways. But more than anything, it's helped me beat that self-limiting belief that was in me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny, man, how the tire kickers are at those lesser price points. They're just like, people, you're doing this free trial, like, test out my services for 30 days, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get all these tire kickers. And then you just feel like, am I worth like doing this coaching thing, this consulting thing? If that's the kind of quality of clients I'm receiving, and then you raise up your prices and holy smokes, there's this whole new client pool, right? So and you said 6 times what it was?
Yes.
Holy
6
smokes.
times.
if that's what it takes, and listeners out there, this is very important for you that are coaches, speakers, consultants, et cetera, that there's going to be more value at that price point. And it's going to be scary. And you know what? You might have to add more, incentivize it more, et cetera, get a contract. Really, that's really where I'm starting to see more and more at that next level, is that if you really want to take everything serious, you have to have a contract in line. And Kimanzi, I go back to your advice too, to myself, brother, about this. So thank you for giving me that advice, way back when. And it's definitely been instrumental for myself, man.
Exactly. Know your worth, and don't let that be a self-limiting belief.
That's it. Focus, know your worth, and keep it moving. So now I'm going to ask you, let's see. Normally I ask this one deep dive question, but I've started implementing just a different segment on the back end. So let's see. If you're willing to play along, let's try this out. So if you had to pick whether it's a gratitude challenge or more of the deep dive question, which one would you go for?
Deep dive.
Deep
Definitely.
dive? Okay.
Let's get into some deep stuff.
There we go. All right. So if 100 years from today, you were to be remembered for something legendary, and there was a statue erected in Kimanzi's image, what would that one legendary thing be that you wanted to be remembered for, brother, 100 years from today?
That I was the person that showed the everyday average blue collar man or woman that they didn't have to settle for what society tells us that life should look like. A life of manual labor, a life of constantly worrying about money, a life of not having a higher quality of life. That if you don't, the society tells us if you don't go get the degrees and you don't go to school and get the certifications, that's the kind of life that you have. I'd love to be known to be the person that showed people that there's so much more to life, and you deserve a better life no matter who you are. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to get to a different level. You deserve everything that you want out of life. And you're going to get it if you decide to do something about it.
Oh, man. Amen, brother. You're preaching now.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That is awesome. No doubt you're doing it. You're doing big things in this world. And, man, I just kudos to you and just wishing you the best, brother, and continued success from here forward. And 2017, it's going to be a very powerful year for both of us. So I'm excited. And if there's anything else you'd like to add, brother, you know what? Let me ask you this before we end this segment. Are there any, I guess, passion projects that you have upcoming, or is there anything that you do philanthropic, anything that you do like for charities that maybe you'd like to highlight?
If I highlighted anything, charity would probably be the Salvation Army. So if you had a couple bucks, definitely give some money to them because they do good things. And I know I give money to Salvation Army because my father, who I was not really close to, he actually died living in a Salvation Army. So it's something that's kind of always been on my heart. So if you got a couple bucks, go and donate something to the Salvation Army.
Wow, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. And definitely, I know I will. So thank you so much, Kimanzi. And where is the best place for us to connect with you online?
kconstable.com. KConstable.com. kimanziconstablecoach.com, and you'll see all kinds of articles and interviews and everything. There's a lot of free good stuff there that will help you if you want to build a lifestyle business that allows you to have freedom.
Right on, brother. And one last thing, are there any promos you want to do? This is your platform, brother. If you want to highlight any coaching program you're promoting right now, please do so.
No, you can go to the site. There's courses. There's books there. There's all kind of stuff. If you decide that any of it's good for you, check it out. But no, there's nothing specific.
Right on. So the next book, what's that? What's your next book going to be called? I know we talked about this here and there.
7 Choices You'll Regret at the End of Your Life.
7 Choices You'll Regret at the End of Your Life. Wow, man. Love that cover, dude. I love that title of that book. I can imagine what the cover is going to look like now. So what are you thinking about the cover design?
I don't know. I usually let the creative people do that. That's kind of not my area. So I let them come up with something creative, and it looks good. And I'm like, yeah, that looks good. My area is just to write the books and then promote them.
Nice. Right on, brother. All right, guys. Well, this has been a wrap. And thank you so much, Kimanzi, for joining us on Thriving Beyond. I know it's been a while since we've wanted to get this episode done. So thank you so much, brother.
Thank you for having me. It's super fun. I hope somebody listens to this and just takes action on their dream.
Right on. Gratitude. So as always, keep going, keep growing, and keep on thriving, because it's way better than just surviving. Until next time.
Thanks for listening. For recaps and to claim bonus gifts, head over to thriving beyond podcast.com. Keep thriving.